Welcome. Good morning and good evening, everyone from around the world for tuning into the Stimson Center Southeast Asia program's release of a new dashboard on unregulated mining in the Mekong region. I'm Brian Eiler. I direct the Stimson Center Southeast Asia program, and with my colleague Regan Kwan, who is leading this effort on monitoring unregulated mining in the Mekong region, we welcome you to this, what is going to be, unfortunately, a very dismal seminar. And I hate to share the news that it's possible that 43 rivers and tributaries in mainland Southeast Asia, in the countries of Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam, are possibly polluted in a serious way from mining pollution. We already know that four of those rivers have serious pollution in them. Those being the Kok River and the Sai River in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai province in Thailand, pollution from upstream mining in Myanmar, and water testing results have demonstrated that by the Thai government. Just last week, we learned about high levels of mercury and arsenic in Thailand's portion of the Salween River from upstream mining in Myanmar. And that river and the use of that river is now being reduced by local people who rely on that river. And just this morning, we learned from Jerry Flynn and his colleague Andy Ball on their excellent reporting via Manga Bay about pollution on the Se San River system in Cambodia from a number of alluvial gold mines. So that's 4 of 43 that we've listed in our dashboard. And we hope that this effort of identifying where these unregulated mines are can kick off action, messaging, and effort to test these rivers to protect communities and ultimately regulate or stop the unregulated mining practices. Because the situation is likely very bad, and we're going to find out how bad it is here in the coming weeks. Now, we're going to release a data set here right now. My colleague Regan Kwan is going to drop the links in the chat for you. The dashboard is now live, as well as an explainer article. And this dashboard details 2,400 instances of unregulated mining across 3 categories of mining in mainland Southeast Asia. You can learn about where the sites are. You can see the satellite imagery of those sites and see what kind of mining sites they are. What the dashboard doesn't do is, one, confirm whether these mines are polluting or not. The dashboard does not tell you definitively what type of mining is happening at these sites. But what we do know is that the 3 kind of mines that we've identified, in situ leaching, which is associated with rare earth mining, heap leach, which is often associated with gold and other minerals, and alluvial mining, which is also often associated with gold, but also some other minerals, is happening rampantly within the region. And we hope that our efforts can inspire those who are calling in to take action on this very serious issue. Before we get started, I have some thanks to give to folks who have brought this together. One is Dr. Apisom Intralawan in Chiang Rai, who pinged us back in the spring saying, something is happening here, can you help? So this was the first call for help from many friends that we have who have supported our work in the Mekong region for decades. And people like Apisom, like Kunpai, who's joining us here, and Sang, have long contributed to our work monitoring the Mekong through the Mekong Dam Monitor and other efforts. And now these people are suffering as they are acting and as they are advocating for change and for help with this very dire situation. So a big thanks to all of you who are working hard every day on this issue. I also need to thank Regan Kwan, who kicked this all off. This really is his project. He's the lead researcher on this and deserves all the credit that comes from what will happen with this dashboard and its release. Steve Ross is a colleague of ours at the Stimson Center. He's helped us navigate some of the complexities of understanding the Myanmar situation and geopolitics in the region around mining. We have a good colleague, Madeline McMurray, who has served to answer many of our questions as Regan and I have boned up on learning more about minerals and extractives and in the region, particularly in conflict areas and post-conflict areas. Also, Madeline works for our environmental security program, and which is led by Lauren Hertzer-Reese. And Lauren is leading a broad effort on critical minerals at the Stimson Center. So watch for that, more to come. And Courtney Weatherby, who has worked tirelessly on this database and provided other support, deputy in our program. Um, we wouldn't have been able to do this without you, Courtney. So thank you so much. So those are my introductory remarks. You'll hear from me more as we go. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to turn this over to Pai Diet, who is the executive director of Rivers and Rights, a new NGO in northern Thailand that is working on rivers issues and rights for people in Southeast Asia. Pai, over to you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Brian and Stimson Center for inviting me to this panel. From Northern Thailand, I'd like to share with you the situation that we've been facing for the past, I would say for the past year. But actually before that, back in around early last year, people along the Sai River along Thailand and Myanmar border, opposite to Masai and Takilek towns, they complain about the unusual uh, state of the river because it's unusually murky and it's white, and when people put the water in the bottles for 3 months, nothing happened. It just looks like that. And what is important is that this is a source of water supply for tens of thousands of people along in the towns and in municipality, as well as it is a source of irrigation for rice paddy, large rice paddy along the side and the Ruak River. Then for the Kok River in Taton, early this year we heard from the local villagers telling us that after the flood last year in Chiang Rai province, in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, the Kok River never returned to be cleared at all. So, and they suspect that there are some mining activities happening upstream. So we went there and discussed with people, and later on, we found that from the Chan Himarai Foundation and other colleagues that provide us satellite imagery and other evidence showing that upstream of the Kok River, there are some kind of unusual mining happening already that's possibly contribute to the strange color of the river and the quality of the water. Luckily enough, I think in Thailand we still have a functioning pollution control department that they immediately, after people filed the complaint, and they immediately came to the area and test the water. And at this stage, for the Kok Sai and the Mekong River, 12 times already that indicates that they conduct the water monitoring and indicate that there are heavy metals contamination above the safety standards in our rivers in northern Thailand. And when we went to the Mapha Luang district overlooking the Myanmar part, we saw this kind of open mining within our own eyes. No need to use telescope or anything or satellite imagery. This kind of thing happening already upstream of the Sai River. This is why that makes the Sai River so strange. And the result of the water testing is that for the first eight times of the testing, the arsenic contamination is above the safety standards in the Kok Sai, and particularly the Sai River. The level is pretty high and like worrying high. And they also on the Mekong River on Thai-Lao border. And this is similar to what the Mekong River Commission test result, as well as it show that the upstream upper Mekong along Thai-Lao border has been contaminated by arsenic. So right after the testing result, official testing result, the Chiang Rai governor and other authority in the province released or issue a statement and warning people not to have the direct exposure to the river, not use it, not swim, no swim in the river, and not using it directly on watching this or other direct contact of the river. So this is for us, I think it's pretty a lot. And our rivers that we used to play in it, we used to use and have life in it, no longer be usable. And just last week in the Salaween River, the water testing also confirmed the contamination of this one of the largest, mightiest river in Southeast Asia that still run freely. And we thought that from the snow melts from the Himalaya plateau all the way to the Indian Ocean, I thought that it was the source of pure or clean water for the ocean, but actually it's now contaminated by all those unregulated or illegal minings that I believe that our colleagues will share with you afterwards. But as a environmentalist working on defending for the rivers for my entire professional life, and as a local resident here, I feel that this is actually totally unacceptable, and we are seeing more and more degradation of these mines that extract what they see valuable from our lands, from our hills, and just leaving everything in the water, in the system, and in our environment. But I'm still hopeful that there should be, yeah, ways out, and there should be accountability procedure to ensure that all the supply chain of the critical minerals and rare earth mineral need to be responsible to the source. So that's my very brief first round. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kumpai. And I know you're working tirelessly there. We see you working during the day, every day online with your posts on Facebook, and you're joining us in the evening from Chiang Rai. I hope you're getting some rest, but no- we might not, none of us might be able to rest until this is over, and who knows when it's going to be over because it's just beginning. And so thank you again for joining in. Folks, some rules for today. We're on the record. We have many journalists joining our webinar. I hope that if anyone has questions, you can post the questions in the Q&A box, post them there. Thank you. And if you have if you're a media representative and you have other questions, we're holding a press conference 12 hours from now, and I'm dropping the link to the RSVP form for that in the chat very soon. I'll put that there very soon. So look for that. And also someone who has been working tirelessly on this is Dr. Wan Wiria, Sang Lee, Jerry Flynn, our panelists who will be you'll be learning from their experience after Regan's presentation. We welcome our panelists. We welcome all of you to learn more about this. I'm going to turn this over to Regan Kwan now, again, who has led this effort. He's going to lead us through a discussion of the methods used to map the mines, as well as some summary information, and then take you on a tour of the new dashboard. Regan, kudos to you for this effort. Over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. Good morning and good evening. And thank you all for joining. Sorry, it's been an early morning. Yeah, so this is a quickly go through an overview of what our data currently shows, and then a bit more description about each mining type and how we identify them, as well as some of the potential impacts from each of these mines. So at the moment, we have about 2,400 identified mining locations throughout mainland Southeast Asia. On the background here, you'll see kind of a snapshot of what our dashboard currently looks like, which I've dropped the link into the chat. So please feel free, if you have a second screen or you prefer to look at that over me, please feel free to pull that up and explore that as we continue this discussion. So most of the mining operations that we've located are either adjacent to or on the river within Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. And besides that, we also have some of our water quality testing results that Khun Pai mentioned earlier, conducted by Thailand's Pollution Control Department all throughout the Kok River Basin. And then finally, all of our data set, as with any other type of data product that we've created so far, is publicly available for download and use. Oh, there you go. So first we'll discuss in situ leaching. In situ leaching, as many of you are familiar with, if you've been following this issue, is mostly used for rare earth, especially in this region of the world. This is a method in which it extracts minerals through the use of leachate, usually acid-based, In this case, for rare earth, it's a type of fertilizer, whether that be ammonium sulfate or ammonium bicarbonate. These chemicals are slowly dripped into a hill where they run through the clay subsurface, and then pipes are inserted throughout the side of the hillside, and water is pumped from nearby rivers into the hill to help mix and flush all of that fertilizer throughout the clay to dissolve rare earth elements present in the soil. And then that water that was used from the river is in turn discharged back into the same river system with, to our knowledge, no cleanup effort at all. At the bottom of this hill, there are collection pools where these dissolved rare earth elements and remaining chemical solution is collected in, and it is there that they introduce additional chemicals that further separate the rare earth from the solution, and then they will drain these pools to either a second series of pools or just leave it there, and then they will collect the sludge at the bottom, which is the rare earth elements that we are familiar with. In terms of the use of this kind of mining, this has very, relative to other types of mining, especially open pit or surface type minings, this is very low surface disturbance in the sense that vegetation is relatively intact. There is still some deforestation associated with this kind of mining, but relative to other types, it's very low. However, the impacts to the river and the ecosystem is very, very high, and we've only really seen poor practices and substandard practices that have led to a lot of contamination in other parts of the world, specifically China, where this kind of process was developed about 40 years ago. Here is on the right, you'll see an image there's a satellite image from Google Earth of what these mines generally look like. You'll see those bright blue and dark blue pools. These are the pools where all of the rare earths are collected, and then they will go through these series, and that's where the oxides are collected before they are sent for further processing and then exported, mostly to our knowledge, to China. So these are the kind of things that we look for when we are identifying in situ leaching mines for rare earth. Some of the risk involved with this kind of mining are the chemicals that are used, as I mentioned earlier, ammonium sulfate, ammonium bicarbonate. These are fertilizers generally, but the amount that they use is in such high quantities that if you were to look at some of the import import numbers for these kind of chemicals from China, it'd probably be related more closely to in situ leaching than farming. As a result of the use of these chemicals and just how they're processed through the mining activity itself, there's a lot of potential hazards and toxic byproducts that could come through this. Specifically, the direct use of river water, fresh water, not only through the pipes, but also in the collection pools. There's a lot of issues with potential leakage. A lot of these pools are lined with this impermeable layer, but the upkeep of the layer is not as well documented. So any leakage could result in a contamination of not only the soil near the pools, but also the groundwater aquifers that are nearby, in addition to the river system itself. Additionally, it's been known that, in almost all types of mining, heavy metals will be introduced into river systems, as well as rare earth elements that are not collected through this process that leak through, in addition to high values of nitrates, which can be very dangerous for not only the river system, but also the biodiversity of the river system, and then any humans that come into contact in a prolonged and highly concentrated manner. Here are some of the numbers we have for in situ leaching at the moment. Myanmar has the most within the region at about 549, and then Laos has about 26. The the history of in situ leaching mining in Myanmar dates a bit longer than Laos. We've seen mines as early as 2015, but we expect some of them to actually be before that. A lot of our data is using Planet Labs satellite imagery, and that data goes only as far back as 2016. So unfortunately, we aren't able to confirm some of the older mines that may have existed in Myanmar, but we know they have at least existed for the past decade or so. In Laos and then in other parts of Myanmar, especially Shan State, we've noticed a noticeable uptick in the appearance of these rare earth mines starting in about 2020, and they've continued to grow since then.
Hey, Reagan, can I add that the reason why we label in situ leaching as unregulated mining is because this form of leaching came from China. It started in China decades ago and has since been banned. And after its ban, after a long period of regulation and crackdown on China, it moved abroad close to China's borders in Myanmar first and then to Laos. It was banned because of its extreme pollution and damage to health and communities and ecosystems. And then the practice was moved abroad. And as these mines are likely owned and operated by Chinese miners. We see no evidence of mitigation. Often there could be possibly tailing ponds near these mines that could collect the runoff. We don't see that. We've actually never seen that with this form of in situ leaching. And nor do we observe other forms of mitigation. So it's for this reason that we label it as unregulated mining. Back to you, Reagan.
Okay. All right, moving on. Next, we'll talk about heap leaching. This is another very common form of mining that takes ores from nearby deposits. They're crushed into smaller rocks, and then they're stacked onto the heap, and then they are irrigated with a specific type of leaching solution, depending on what kind of mineral that they want to extract. In the region, we've commonly seen this used for gold, but as well as copper and examples of manganese. Again, depending on the ore you're looking for, the solution can run from anywhere. For gold, for example, would be a cyanide solution, a sodium cyanide solution. And then I believe for copper, we're looking at something like hydrochloric acid. And the way in which this works is, the chemicals would be sprinkled or sprayed over the heap, and then over the course of several months, the ore or the minerals that they're trying to extract will dissolve into a solution, and then that will precipitate and drip into collection pools near the heap, where further processing would separate the mineral from the leaching solution. And in theory, the leaching solution can be reused for another heap. And this is kind of a cross section of what one of these heap leaches look like. On the right, we have a satellite imagery of this heap solution, the heap leaching. You'll see those what kind of look like a pile of ores. These are the heaps of crushed ore that will be mined. And you'll see on the top of the right heap, some of the membrane or that kind of impermeable layer that is laid beneath the heap leach before the rocks are piled on. And then downhill of that, in this case, we have the collection pools where the mineral-laden solution will rest before it is further processed. As I noted, some of the chemicals that are used for this include sodium cyanide for gold, sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid for copper, but there are other types of acids that are used for different types of minerals. Some of the risks associated with this is, just like almost any other type of mining that we're going to talk about here today, there's a lot of environmental exposure to these mines, and it is difficult to control for some of the possible externalities that could affect the heap leaching, particularly, as well as all other types of mining. In this case, there are examples of wildlife, especially migratory birds, that will see these pools and drink from them, and they will die because there's such a high concentration of, say, cyanide, and in which the quantities that they consume will lead to death. But there's also concerns with spillage, overspilling, especially during the wet season. If these pools aren't managed properly, and there's a heavy precipitation that comes in, spillage would occur, in which case it would leak into the soil as well as the groundwater, and then possibly river systems as well. By numbers, heap leaches we're seeing the most in Myanmar, but we also see about 145 in Laos. And then in Cambodia, we found one as well, which I believe Gary Flynn will be talking about.
And just to add to this, the images that you see on the right are from just north of the Golden Triangle on the Myanmar side of the Mekong. And that's an entirely denuded ridge side, part of which flows directly into the Mekong from heap leaching activity. You can learn more about that site where there are scores of heap leaching sites and others on the dashboard. I'm going to put I'll paste it again, the link to the dashboard, and you can browse the dashboard as you listen along. But the reason why we call this unregulated is that if there is mitigation for heap leaching, it's often in the form of tailings ponds that collects the runoff and the leftover slurry after the process is finished. We don't observe many tailing ponds near these sites. And in fact, the one that Reagan just showed on the previous slide is from the area that we're showing here on the near the Mekong. You see no tailings pond there to collect the waste. Those are collection tanks. The ponds often are a third or larger of the mining site itself. So it's for this reason that we label heap leaching in the region unregulated mining. Reagan, back to you.
Yeah. And the final type of mining we've identified as alluvial mining. This kind of mining is most closely associated with artisanal or small-scale mining, and it's generally used to mine for minerals, especially precious metals like gold and silver, but also instances of tin. Particularly in this region, and specifically in Myanmar, I would say most of them are most likely gold, but that's something that we can't positively identified through satellite imagery. And they use many different methods to separate the minerals to be extracted from kind of mineral byproducts or mineral waste that they don't want. Most of it is gravity techniques, so they're using sluicing or dredging or panning, very similar to what we would imagine as gold panning historically. But there's also a lot of risk associated with this kind of mining. In this case, we're looking at the use of chemicals. Mercury is most commonly used for alluvial mining for gold throughout the world. It's easily accessible in quantities that could be used to separate gold from other minerals in the soil. And that in of itself is a big cause of issue. Not only because it's a harmful substance, but also poor practices and exposure. Prolonged exposure can lead to a lot of side effects to not only health, but also the environment, as poor or substandard practices can lead to exposure and improper disposal of mercury into the environment. On the right here, you'll see an image of one of these segments of a river where alluvial mining, or at least the scars of alluvial mining, are present. Alluvial mining usually leads to what can be described as kind of this scarring or moonscape of a river, where you'll see a lot of little pools, a lot of turned over soil, and some kind of sometimes we'll also see mining locations near there as well. But for the most part, we just see the remnants of kind of the extractive nature of this type of mining. And in addition to the other types, I think this one is particularly prominent with heavy metals being introduced into river systems. The method in which this is done by the river system, in which they're exposing a lot of heavy metals that are naturally present in the soil. And because it's directly near the river or on the river or in the river, can lead to high levels of heavy metal detected downstream as well. And, aside from, as I mentioned earlier, the risks involved with this outside of mercury exposure into the ecosystem is also just the heavy metals and other kind of chemicals that might be used to extract the minerals. Alluvial mines, so far this is probably our largest segment of the data set, but I think more than half of our data set is alluvial mines. Most of it has been located in Myanmar. I think, if you've been following this issue, you'll be aware that Myanmar has had a long history with alluvial mining, but just its nature of being part of the, artisanal and small scale mining, it is often part of the informal economy and subsidizes a lot of the income for people who have very few other options. And its kind of unregulated or underregulated nature leads to its rampant usage throughout the world, not only this region. Something to note, though, of the 1300, what we really need to understand and examine is the surface area of this kind of mining because it changes. It's very highly mobile, and miners will go up and down the river to mine for new location or mine in new locations to look for larger deposits. So a lot changes throughout the year, and definitely a lot changes throughout the decade that we've been following this issue, or the decade of information that we've been following this issue.
Also to add that the images that you see here are from the Nam Kha Ding Basin in Laos. It's actually a large river basin that you're looking at, about 20 kilometers wide, just south of a legal gold mine in Laos. What we're looking at is unregulated activity. And most of the alluvial gold mining that we have documented is likely illegal. Licenses were not issued for that activity. For the heap leaching and rare earth mining that we have labeled as unregulated and identified on the dashboard, some of that could be permitted by local governing authorities, whether it's an ethnic armed organization in Myanmar or a district government in Laos. But that doesn't mean that the Lao national government knows that this is happening. That's getting into an entire different discussion on the legality and governance over these mines, and hopefully we can get there during the Q&A. But alluvial mining, by and large, is illegal. And as Reagan noted, there are tens of thousands, if not millions of people that rely on this form of economic activity for their livelihoods, particularly in Myanmar, particularly after the coup of 2021. What can curb or stop this? We're not sure, but we're bringing this information to light. If you look through the data set, you're going to see much of the activity is not done by local people. There is medium scale, industrial scale alluvial mining that's happening very prevalently throughout the entire region. Jerry Flynn just reported on one of those cases in Cambodia, and we're going to hear about that soon. So it's probably more effective to go after the bigger actors who are doing the most damage with major projects that you see here on the image to the right. And it's for these reasons that we have labeled this activity unregulated. Back to you, Reagan.
Thank you. Here's our summary rundown of our data as of this month. We have over 2,400. Most of them are alluvial mines. And then if we look at a country by country level, we'll see Myanmar has the most. But it is also widespread throughout the region, especially if we think about, obviously based on this data set, Myanmar is the most impacted, but as Kumpai has already noted, and many of our speakers later will note, these are transboundary issues. The Kok River runs from Myanmar into Cambodia and into Thailand, and then into the Mekong mainstream that runs through all the rest of the countries in the Mekong sub-region, and it is becoming more transboundary. And a lot of the mines, some of the mines in Laos, do not run into the Mekong, and they in fact run directly into Vietnam. And those are also becoming a bigger issue as we begin to see rare earth mines expand in Laos.
And I want to add that we're surprised that Vietnam's government hasn't reacted to this data, which we published over a month ago with rare earth mining on mines in Laos that are polluting into Vietnam's rivers, or very likely are polluting. We've heard some commitments or interest in testing, but this is an issue for central rivers in Vietnam. And some of this has been reported in the Lao media as well. As the Lao government becomes more committed to cracking down on illegal and unregulated mining within its borders. I also want to say that there are 15 tributaries of the Mekong that have mining activity on them. We're going to see some images of that soon. There are 15 tributaries of the Irrawaddy as well. And the Salween, which mercury and arsenic levels were excessively tested last week. There are 125 mines upstream of those testing areas. So, it's no surprise that that river is polluted. Reagan, back to you.
Sure. Yeah, as Brian noted, and I noted earlier, we've also added some of the publicly available testing results from water sampling done by Thailand's Pollution Control Department. You'll find them on our dashboard, just mostly throughout the Kalk River Basin. But we have among our panelists Dr. Juan Riria, who will be presenting shortly after this. And he will talk about his work on the Salween, as Brian mentioned earlier, and testing the water there and finding high levels of arsenic as well as mercury. And we will be adding that data soon to our dashboard so we can begin to track other rivers that have been impacted so far by mining. Oh, Brian, did you want to do this or?
Yeah, these images are from our report that we have launched simultaneously with the dashboard. One is just to show some trends that we've discovered and only calling out a few of many. And researchers and investigators can use the dashboard to find and label more of these trends. But one is the Nam Yep Reservoir in Laos, which filled in 2015, had roads built around its reservoirs in the last few years that then led to the development of in situ leaching rare earth mines around the reservoir. So there's a relationship between regulated economic activity like the development of dams and reservoirs and illegal concession and this unregulated activity of mines that are likely polluting directly into the reservoir. We know that the rare earth mines in China, the rare earth mines in Laos are very likely owned by Chinese operators. The reservoir is a Chinese-owned dam. Next slide, Reagan. And then finally, as we were building the data set, we noted our job was to discover and to label when the mine showed up. So we were looking chronologically forward and backward through time through the satellite imagery. And we found that other reservoirs had mining sites on them while the dam began its early construction phase. And then the reservoir filled up over some of the alluvial mining sites. This is some activity that we saw both in Laos and in Myanmar. And you can explore more of these trends and more of this information on the explainer article that we have linked in the chat and published today. Back to you, Reagan, for any concluding remarks.
I think that should be it.
Great. Let's look at the dashboard.
Sure. Let me transition to that. Okay, so if you haven't had the chance to, please feel free to, again, look through the dashboard that Brian and I have dropped a link to, but I can quickly go over some of the functions you'll see on the dashboard itself. To the right, you'll find our map with all of the mining sites located. On the top right, we have a drop-down kind of toolkit or toolbar to look at, to search, so you can look for specific locations throughout the map. You can also look at the legends. So here, for example, we have our mining methods. We have alluvial mining in blue, in situ leaching in red, heap leaching green. and some of our water quality, heavy metals, and sediment quality testing result here in the Mekong River Basin. You can interact with the map, you can move it around, you can also click on each of the kind of mining sites. For example, if I were to click on, let's say, one of these rare earth mines in Myanmar, it'll pop it open. You'll see some of the information which we first identified or noticed this rare earth mine, what country it's located in, the sub-basin, the main river basin. So this mine here is part of the Mekong River. The source, so this one was initially located by Shan Human Rights Foundation, who've done a lot of great work within Shan State. And then the location of the mine. And here we've also provided an imagery of, in this case, a soon to be completed rare earth mine. A lot of these mines, especially the newer ones, are unavailable. If you were to look at Google Earth, Google Maps, or even the satellite-based map on this tool, you will most likely not be able to see this image because it's so recent. So we've provided that context for you here to look at the mine and what it looks like from our viewpoint. In addition to that, on the left, you will have a summary data or summary dashboard table of the data itself. So in total, we have over 2,400 mines. Here we have it broken down by the river basin. And then here we have it broken down by sub-river basin, and then a temporal kind of chart of the development of mines in the region. As I noted earlier, our data only goes back as far as 2016. So any mines or any mines that appear in 2016 for us, we would assume it actually began operation the year before in 2015 or older. We just aren't able to identify that at the moment. And the best part about all of this here is it is operationable. You can interact with it and it will filter the data set. For example, if I wanted to look just at the Mekong, you'll see the map has changed. And then everything else within the charts and the total number of mines has also reflected that change as well. In addition to that, on the sidebar, we have some other filters that you can use that aren't included in the charts and tables on the dashboard. For example, you can look at the specific type of mining. So if I want to look at in situ leaching, now I can see how that has changed out here. We have 575 rare earth mines, the distribution or breakdown of the number of mines in each river basin as well as sub-basin. And then I can also look at the country. So if I wanted to specifically look at, say, Laos, I can click that here, and we can see that breakdown as well for Laos. Yeah, so the dashboard is online already. So, after this call, feel free to jump on and just explore the data set for yourself. Brian, back to you.
All right, thank you, Reagan, for that overview. Again, folks, this is dismal news, but we do hope that the dashboard and all the work that's been done by so many in the region can lead us to a valley from which we can begin to climb upward again. And that involves testing, verification of the type of mining activity that's happening, levels of pollution that are in surrounding rivers, providing resources to those who are in need, and ultimately regulating or stopping the activity. There's a lot of work to do, and we're learning from advocates like Kun Pai, who kicked off our webinar on what needs are and what needs to be done. So she is a thought leader on this process, as well as other panelists who will be joining us very soon. I do want to give some recognition to Shan Human Rights Foundation, whose pioneering work really led us and taught us as well how to do the mapping and informed our processes and again helped us learn about what the effects of mining are in the region. We're a water team, and basically most of our work is looking at reservoirs and how reservoir regulation and operations impact the hydrological cycle of the Mekong River. So this is a new project for us and a new effort, and we're learning from many. active in the region on this issue, just as they are learning as they're going, because this issue has become so urgent, and it's affecting lives of not just tens of thousands of people, but likely millions of people in the region. We're going to move to our panel now. I'm going to mix up the order a little bit and invite Jerry Flynn to speak because he has to run here in a few minutes. Jerry had early access to our data set. We worked with Reuters and Manga Bay to give them early access over a month ago to the data set so that they could do some investigative work. And Jerry really surprised us today with the release of an investigative report on a tributary of the Saesan River in Cambodia. So Jerry, would you like to tell us about your story, your results, and a little bit about how the investigation was done using the data? And thanks for joining.
Thank you very much for having us, Brian. You can hear me okay? Perfect. Okay. Yep. Good morning and good evening to those joining from various regions. So yes, for Manga Bay, we were able to get a team out to a very remote part of northeastern Cambodia. This is Varache National Park. So it's technically a protected area where you probably wouldn't expect to see gold mining, but the data set that the Stimson Center was able to provide us helped corroborate what we had sort of seen on satellite imagery already, and that what appeared to be mining activity was happening. But given the remote nature of the location, we had not been able to get up there and identify and verify it ourselves. However, instead, what we were able to do was we were able to get a team of reporters, including Andy Ball, who I think is on this call. Thank you, Andy. And Vanta Phuong, up to Ratnakiri province, right near the Dragon's Tail. And they were able to speak to communities living downstream of this mine. And this is on the Otabuk River, which is, as Brian mentioned, tributary of the Saesan River, one of the 3S rivers that feeds, I think, roughly around 25% of the Mekong's flow. Brian will correct me if I'm wrong on that. But either way, these are, it's the Saesan is an important river, and for the communities living in Taveng district in Ratnakiri, the Otabuk is even more important. It's basically their only real source of fresh water outside of privately owned wells. So it's used for everything from drinking, bathing, cooking, farming. The river itself is, of course, also a source of fish. And so I think what the big takeaway from our story, I think, is we looked at one mining operation and the impact downstream was devastating for multiple villages. So we're talking thousands of people living tens of kilometers away from the mining operation who are living with the consequences of it. And these are often, in this case, they were indigenous communities, but typically, I think from what we've seen from reports coming out of northern Thailand and within Myanmar as well, these are often marginalized riverine communities that are most adversely affected, most heavily reliant on agriculture or fishing to survive. But realistically, I think for us, the key was being able to get some testing done. Our team that went up was able to get water samples, soil samples, and fish samples from both the Otabuk River, which flows through Varache National Park, and the Saesan River, which the Otabuk flows into. In basically, all the results came back with alarming levels of mercury and arsenic. The fish, I think, in particular, were of a big concern because, as we were able to identify with people from the Stimson Center, a lot of these species are long-range migratory species. So they would typically be found far further afield. If they are entering the waters that are getting contaminated by this mine, then there's a very high chance that they are taking that contamination far further downstream, potentially posing a public health risk to people even further than where we were looking. So I think the testing was really a good way to shore up the reporting, because we've also seen, within this region, press freedoms are quite dire, and it's very easy for governments to get to intimidate communities into, recanting their testimony. So it was important for us to make sure that we had concrete evidence, and we were able to identify the company essentially perpetrating these abuses against indigenous communities with government verified documents showing that showed us geospatial data of concessions awarded to Tripiep, one of Cambodia's most notorious environmental vandals, that matched the Stimson Center's data set. We were able to see the alluvial and heap leach mines identified by the Stimson Center were within or on the borders of the concession awarded to Tripiep. So we were able to identify not just the outcomes for the communities downstream, which are, I would argue far more urgent, but also the perpetrator, which, should give the Cambodian government a place to start if they have any intention of stopping this mess. I think that's about everything from me, Brian.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you for joining us last minute. We were not aware of the particulars of Jerry's story. We gave Jerry and the team the data set, and they went at it, and we provided no direction. So this is an example of how the data can be used to tell a really impactful and compelling story for change. And let's keep watching that story coming out of Cambodia, and see if and I encourage Manga Bay to keep watching and keep reporting on it as well, and see how the government and locals react. We do hope that some reporting can be done on the Mekong Basin in Cambodia, not because of mining there, but because of mining upstream in Laos. We've discovered 291 unregulated heap leach and alluvial mines in the Mekong Basin, which is very close to Cambodia, very close to the Tonle Sap, and not too far from Vietnam's Mekong Delta as well. We suppose that there is pollution going into the Mekong River system as well from those 291 mines, given what we know about the other mines and their polluting effects, but nothing has been proven yet. So more investigative work has to be done. Kudos to you, Jerry, and the team for that story. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. Now over to Sang Lee, who is also kind of at ground zero of where this story broke in Taton. Sang is a rivers advocate and environmental defender from the Kok River Basin, who's been working tirelessly on river-related issues in the Kok Basin. But this issue of rare earth mining pollution and other mining pollution has just wrecked that community with the discovery of pollution in those rivers earlier this year. Sang, we're going to turn it over to you for a brief presentation, and we want to know how you're doing. Sang, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning and good evening for everyone. My name is Sang. I am Shan, and I'm come from Chiang Mai in northern Thailand, and I'm really grateful to have a chance to speak with you today about the mining is impacting indigenous people in my area. Thank you to Stimson to inviting me to share my experience. Yes, next, again. Yeah, you can see from the picture, I'm grew up in Taton sub-district, a small town right on the Thailand and Burma border along the upper part of Kok River. My family and many others have lived along this river for generations since the time of my great-grandpa. Today, I want to talk about how the rare earth mining upstream have changed our life. Kok River flow from about 285 kilometers before connect to Mekong. It start in Chan State, run through northern Thailand, and support more than 500,000 of people along the river. You will find 14 indigenous groups, each with their own traditional and way of life connect to the river. More than 50% of the people here have no Thai citizen, and most of land doesn't have legal document because it is classified as a forest reservation. So our livelihood, farmer, fishing, traveling between community by boat depend on heavily on the river. Things changed completely after the big flood in September 2024. The flood destroyed house, farm, and cover our land with sand and log because most land has no title. We didn't qualify for government to compensation. Farmer had to pay out of pocket to clear their land, and even after creating the soil became hard, and our vegetable didn't grow well anymore. Normally by December, after the rainy season, the river become clear again. We use the water for swimming, washing, gardening, just normal daily life. But after the flood, the water stay muddy and for a month. Fishermen and children got itchy drizzle after being in the river for too long. Then in March, we learned that coal and rare earth mining were operating upstream in Myanmar. Government testing confirmed that heavy metal and arsenic in river water, fish, and some vegetable. This had changed our traditional life a lot. People can't safely use water like before. We have to avoid some local vegetable. We can't eat much river fish. Our cultural festival, many of them relate to the river, will also affect tourists, drop restaurant and hotel closed in Taton. Water festival usually bring in 80 to 100 million baht each time, but now even cancer. Women and children feel the impact strongly. Kids can't learn to swim in the river anymore. Fishermen can't fish. Family have to buy vegetable from the city and pay for clean water. Even though we used to rely on the river for much of our daily need, so our living costs keep going up while incomes stay low because most of us work as low-wage labor. Right now, what our community urgently need are very basic things. First, we need safe water for drinking and daily use. Second, we need soil testing in our agricultural area to understand how much toxic substance remain. We also need support and compensation from the government for damage we have suffered. People need clear information about toxic substance and guidance on how to protect their family. And finally, we need training on how to adapt and live with this situation while long-term solution and being developed. Yeah, thank you for listening and for the giving me to share my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Stang. And thank you for the tour of Tatong community that you gave to Reagan and me, not only of the river, but of the communities that we visited that shed light on this issue. And I know that you and many there in Chiang Rai have become exhausted from giving tours to media, journalists, and to researchers and to government officials on this issue. I'm afraid they're going to continue until something changes. So I encourage you to keep up the work that you're doing. And the dry season is coming, so that's when there's less water availability. I urge the Thai government to act and provide the resources that Sang and others are calling for, because the dry season will create a scarcity of water, particularly water that is coming from springs that is not contaminated, and encourage people living along the Kok River to consume water directly from the contaminated river. So Thai government, please act quickly on this issue. As well as others. Now, we know so much about the state of water quality, contamination in the Kok River, in the Ruak River, and now the Salween River from the work of Dr. Wan Wiria at Chiang Mai University's Environmental Science Department. And interestingly, it is academics and experts who are leading the way and pointing the way to the Thai government on where to test. And Dr. Wangweria is the pioneer of this effort, and we've invited him to share some of his lessons learned as well as some of the results from his testing on what's happening along these rivers. Dr. Wiria, over to you.
Thank you, Brian, to invite me to share my experience here. Okay, so you hear me? Yeah, right?
We can hear you well.
Okay, so my sampling site is actually start with the Kok and Sai and Luok and Khong River that we analyze for water sampling and sediment and soil and agricultural product. In term, we support by the Earth Thailand Ecology Alert and Recovery. And also we support this analysis by Thai Health Promotion Foundation, and Chiang Mai University also help this one. We just start our sampling site in May of this year, and this is our result. In the first one is from Chiang Mai University, and you can see like it's high if compared with another results. Weak blue and deep blue is from PCD, and the green one is from Public Health, and the yellow one from Luang University. So a little bit Chiang Mai University concentration of arsenic is very high because it's starting the raining season and erosion is very high in that part, and also the lead their concentration is very high also, and manganese high as earth standard also, and nickel and copper. I think if we compare with the Chiang Mai province, also we have the technology, the University of the in northern part of Thailand, they also monitor in 3 times. They also high for arsenic and for lead, for manganese and nickel also. For copper, not even over the standard, and zinc not over. And this is so we found that the data from Pollution Control Department, Chiang Mai University, and also the Techno Ratchamongkolana. This is one is indicated that turbidity is correlation with arsenic concentration. Explained that is 80% of the data, all of that is highly positive correlation. So that means if you see the water color is changed, the arsenic concentration is changed also. And this is the result of sediment and soil sample. Almost we analyzed 27 parameter, not only the heavy metal, also copper, iron, and potassium, and another. Arsenic is also high concentration if over standard in Thailand, and in term of the sediment and also soil. If we compare with the pollution control department, also we high concentration that I told you already in that period is very early of the rainy season. So it's a little bit high, higher than another comparison. Yeah, this is my result from the concentration. That is not only that we doing the health risk assessment. We use the hazard quotient to analysis, and we use the hazard index, and almost is over than 1. Over than one is mean is high risk for the community and for the adults, for child, in terms of the oral consumption and also the skin touching. Is over than one. One is standard. If more than one is higher. This is 100 and 60 is very serious. And also we calculate the cancer risks. This is the long-term effect for the human. This one is like if higher than 1 super -4 is very high. Yeah, so this mean is in term of the border in Thailand is very high. If you go to see the risk map, the red one is the extreme highly in Mae Ai border and Mae Sai border is very high. And if the river inside the Thai also high, but it's not like inlet water from another country. This one is, yeah, we calculated, and the extremely is in the Mae Sai and also Tha Ton and then the Mekong River. And this one is the finger sauce. We also do finger sauce, sauce approachment. We would like to see the sauce distribution. 38% is from mining, and also 31% is from the erosion, and also the not only the natural erosion, maybe it's human erosion also. And for the agricultural is a little bit lower, 19%, and then for the community and also industry is 12%. I would like to show you if we take a look at Stimson, and I suggest that in that time we didn't do with the we do only the number one is from Coke, right? And we didn't analyze this number two and number three because we just suggest that this point in the circle is the main mining. But for me, I would like to see the data from 2 and 3 also. But for pollution control department in that time, they didn't have. So I asked, I asked Pi to collect the sample for me. In terms of that one is 3 site. In that time, it's very seriously because it's Pi get the 3 sample for me, and we analyze arsenic is very high, more than standard for 5 times. So this one is the started for the government the pollution control department to start warning and then analyze number 2 and number 3 in that time. And the first time of PCD they used the test kit, but it's not good. So in the second time they collect the sample for me also because I just asked for the head Kun Avira. He also collect the sample for me, and the same sample with the pollution control department they're doing. So this is resolved. But before that time, Kun Yam, the Tapani, he's the journalism that, but she get the sample for me also before pollution control department on 9 November. But the result of she is a little bit higher than pollution control department. You can see that like 0.03, approximately like higher than 3 times. But in terms of this one, because in this time I can analyze the mercury, but very surprised for me because it's normally we cannot see the mercury in the water. But in this time, I used the same model and the same the instrument of the PCD. So, but I don't know why the result from PCD, they don't have the mercury, but I found the mercury is a high, maybe higher than standard. And this is the sample from PCD sample, but my analysis. Yeah, this one is a little bit not higher than Kun Yam sample, but this one is quite lower than. But in that time, PCD is quite the turbidity is lower than Kun Yam Thapani collection in on 9 November. In this time is a little bit turbidity is very low, yeah. And also mercury is high, but I don't know why, and that I would like to see why is what the reason of that. And I calculate HQ and HI also in term of the all of the site, but the result is not like Mekong and Mesai River that the first time I met, because it's, if you can see the started should be high, but started is not high. But in the middle of this, the green one is from uh, Kun Yam, is around this side in the middle. And also in the middle, site 9, 8, and 10, in the middle of for the pollution control department also is a high. But if you compare with the pollution control data, also not high in the inlet water. So I don't know why it's about this area. Maybe we have to find out why in the middle have some activity or some the branch river from Myanmar side or from Thai side. I don't know, but we
Thank you,
have to
Dr.
find.
Viria. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for that. We're gonna move to our discussion, and I think you've
yeah,
identified many questions that need to be answered with these new findings. I mean, importantly, you can, all of you listening in can see through the work of those who have joined and spoken to you today. Clearly, the work that all of us are doing is the work that governments should be doing, but they're not. And some are responding, some are reacting, and you can see a positive chain of action to a degree from Dr. Wiria's testing and Kunpai's testing, uh, getting Thailand's pollution control department targeted on areas to test, and then bringing their accredited labs to do the testing. Now, that needs to be done in Laos, that needs to be done in Cambodia, that needs to be done in Myanmar to the degree that it can be done in Myanmar, given the conflict situation there. And it's until there is testing on these rivers, it's hard to determine how resources can be allocated to provide to people in need, how these activities can be regulated or stopped, and how better action and diplomacy can come together on this issue. A question I want to ask to all of our panelists before we move it over to the audience for Q&A. And if you don't have a chance to ask questions today and you're a journalist, please sign up for our press conference happening at 9 p.m. tonight, US time, Eastern time, or 9 a.m. on Tuesday, November 25th, Bangkok time. I put the link in the chat. But I want to ask all of you joining in, this effort that our team has created to create a visualized dashboard that not only identifies the mining sites, but also brings in the water quality and soil quality testing results for the public to see. How do you think this is going to help change the conversation and drive more positive action? I'll ask Kunpai first.
What was the question? Sorry.
What's your reaction to the new data set in this efforts? Do you think can it help?
Yeah, to me, it's shocking to see like 2,400 plus unregulated mines happening throughout the region. And at first, we just thought that, yeah, a few of them upstream of our rivers, one more of them upstream of the tributaries of the Mekong River above the Golden Triangle, then upstream of the Salween, but now it's all over the places. I think it's reflect clearly how uh, laws and regulation and in this region has been very pretty low, and the way that the authoritarian state in this region that could allow this kind of thing to happen. I saw some other question about the what's the land ownership. I would say that most of these are in the area where the public do not have control on over it, and the central government of each country might not have the direct control over it. And I I would say this kind of resource grabbing is just too much. The way that we are talking about the water testing and the contamination, we are using our own money or public money to test all this, while those business just grab whatever valuable back to their pocket and make it even more valuable during in the supply chain. I think this is just a water testing only, but how about the health, the public health, and the recovery of the ecosystem and the remedy for the local communities? And we're not talking about Pisang's community, but we're talking about countries in the region. So I aim for I look forward to see like positive response to information that provided by you, Brian, and Simpson Center. And I think this is a good starting point for us to visualize what actually happened in the remote area that might not be accessible by us in like physically.
Thank you, Kumpai. Sang or Wiria, how will this dashboard help your efforts?
Uh, I see that more mining in upstream. That means there will be more forced relocation in upstream of Kok River, and more people will flee to Thailand, and more illegal migrant in Thailand. And yeah, in Thailand they become a cheap labor here. That is a big concern that I have seen. And one more thing is policy is how to make Burma change about this one. How the I see that some question talk about MRC, how MRC involved to address this pollution solution. Yeah, I also the think out of that how MRC can involve and solve this solution. And for the people, especially the community here, we are waiting. We can do nothing. It's the overload for us to handle. So we want clean water to come back. Yeah.
Thank you, Sang. Dr. Wiria.
Okay, so for me, it's very, very tough. For me, it's because I'm learning about their mining is from your dashboard the first time because I we take a look with Google is not it's not clear, but also I'm all of my spend for politics in terms of the province and also international and national level. I also give you links for our committee also. And another thing is I'm from academics. I have to use this for the teaching because I'm a lecturer of the environmental monitoring analysis. So I'm used this platform for my student also. So it's very incredible for us to use your dashboard. And also, in the news also Pi know a lot because it's all we just reference for your dashboard also. Yeah, it's very, very good for us to use this one.
Well, thank you, Dr. Weary. And we're glad that, there's a cycle that develops, right, of communication, feedback loop of us talking with all of you, showing us where to look, and then that continues. We map the minds and it leads you to action. And we hope that this cycle can build and snowball into really effective action that brings governments in to act. Because again, this is a problem for governments to solve ultimately. Resources in Thailand to people who need them need to be provided by the Thai government, importantly, and that's not happening. And then the Thai government needs to act diplomatically with Beijing or Myanmar, particularly on the rare earth issues, to curb what's happening upstream. But heap leach mining and alluvial gold mining is also out of control. And that's not necessarily a problem that involves Chinese actors, right? These could be Thai miners acting abroad. This could be Vietnamese miners acting abroad, Lao miners, Cambodian miners, as well as Burmese. So this is a complicated, complex issue. We've only scratched the surface at this webinar. We haven't really gotten into the factors driving the mining, and nor have we talked about things like the diplomatic discussion, the policy level discussion that needs to happen around this. I'm going to turn to our questions. We might go 3 minutes over time, so we can hit some of those. But again, we're holding a press conference for journalists in 11 hours from now. Please join us for that if you have more questions. There is a question about the Mekong River Commission. I'm going to turn this over to anyone on the panel. What's your reaction and response to the Mekong River Commission's response so far? Noting that the Mekong River Commission does do water quality testing and publish that information online. We've discovered that the information is published only up until about 2024. So we question the need for more and new data up to the present. But importantly, the water quality data doesn't look at things like arsenic, cyanide, and mercury and heavy metal poisoning from our perspective. Perhaps we're not looking at the right place on the MRC data portal, but more new kinds of testing should happen from the Mekong River Commission or to collect that data from governments that are doing that type of testing and publishing it on the MRC data portal. Anyone on this call, reactions, responses to the Mekong River Commission action so far?
I can go quick. As the council, the Mekong Council meeting is going to happen on the bank of the Kok River later this week. So we expect that there will be a discussion on this important and emerging, I would say that it is emergency topic for the Mekong River Basin as a whole. And even though it's involved with actors that could be non-state, could be non-Mekong MRC members, but it is very important for the leaders and for the referent governments, particularly the ministers joining this conversation to talk about this immediately. And even though they are, I learned that they are approving the five-year plan for strategic plan for the MRC, and we hope that in their 5 years plan they will include this emergency topic within the plan. Otherwise, I don't think there will be positive problem solving of this at this stage.
Thank you, Kumpai. Sang, Wiria, messages to the Mekong River Commission?
Yeah, I think would be good if they have a site visit to visit the people who are affected from this issue, especially in Chathon, because I know that MRC have a meeting some months ago, but they are not involved the people from community. So how they going to know how the situation? So if I can pass the message to them, so please involve the people from community in the discussion.
Thank you, Sang. Dr. Wiria?
I think I hope MRC can have some of the committee for help each other. I mean, in terms of the technique, I mean, we didn't have the something like the analysis, monitor the heavy metal together in terms of the technicians. But I hope they can have some committee work together in terms of the monitoring. Yes.
Thank you. Regan, thoughts on MRC? Or there's a question for you in the chat about methods from Peter John Maynell, our old friend Peter John. How have you identified locations of these different mines? Is it only from inspection of satellite imagery, machine learning interpretation, or from local information? And Regan, if you would want to go on to further comment about perhaps ways that we could determine what type of mining, what minerals and metals are being mined, since our data set does not necessarily do that.
Sure. Just to quickly go over the first question, I think we need to treat this as a transboundary issue. As you know, we focused a lot on the Mekong River, and it's because that's where we personally started that journey and where a majority of our presenters kind of have formed their basis of understanding. But what we're really talking about is 3 mines, and it's caused such an uproar for 3 mines that we'd have to imagine what expanding that understanding to 2,400 mines really means. So the MRC has a big role to play in that because they are the Transboundary Water Governance Institute to do so, that we need to engage with other countries that have not been engaging in this conversation as in-depthly as Thailand has, and especially as non-government organizations and representatives have so far. So I think that's kind of the space where MRC can see itself in engaging on both the testing side and also, as Kun Sang said, visiting the sites that have been affected to make it understandable to see what communities are feeling about this issue. And then to the broader question about our methods, it has been mostly satellite imagery, and that's where we started, but we really started from a robust literature of understanding how to identify these mines done by a lot of on-the-ground organizations like Shan Human Rights Foundation, but also Global Witness, who have done separate work both in Kachin State and in Shan State. The Lao work we've done is mostly from one-off, very, very siloed reporting about rare earth mines that began probably last year, but didn't really have any available data out there. So that was really just looking through, going to your next question, looking through years and years of satellite imagery and just geolocating that based off of contextual evidence or little clues that were left to us in those articles. A lot of this was done by hand. We don't have the capacity to run any machine learning on the satellite imagery yet, although we have seen a lot of really good work in research that shows the possibility of using machine learning. And I think our data set as a starting point would be a good training data set to begin to look through more data and then also expand that globally. And then finally, to your last question, which I just blanked out on. What was the last question?
Are there methods to identify using remote sensing or other methods to identify the type of minerals or metals that are being extracted, and thus being able to assign potentially the chemicals that are used or heavy metals that are used to process the metal, and therefore that is what could be polluting the rivers.
Correct. Okay, got it. So specifically in situ leaching, I mean, we kind of already know that's rare earth. There really isn't another use for that in this region, in this context. But when we think about other types of mining, like open pit mining, as well as heap leach and possibly alluvial as well, there is the opportunity to use hyperspectral imagery, satellite imagery that can identify surface conditions as well as surface geology. And if we were able to use that data set, you could correlate what is identified on the surface with the type of mining that is being done. So a clear example of that is, we've been talking about in situ leaching for rare earth, but there are also open pit mines for rare earth, a different subset of rare earth. And there have been examples of using that kind of technique and data set to identify what is being mined in those open pit. Additionally, you can also continue to potentially track some of the existing elements within the surface and river water. And you can use that to correlate with on-the-ground testing done by teams like Dr. Riruga and PCD to correlate both the on-the-ground data with satellite imagery and then build out a library, which I think is still missing from this kind of workflow.
So Reagan, quick question, and this also comes from the Q&A. Did you find any mines as you were scouring the region for activity that you didn't know how to identify? The way that we identified these, we have a footprint for a particular type of mining. We can say that this is that. But as you were looking, were there mines that baffled you?
Yeah, open pit mines are probably the hardest to discern because they all look the same. You just can't tell what's being mined. As you noted, Brian, this data set is mostly falls within the category of illegal or uncertain legality underregulated or unregulated. And that's hard to notice. But on the ground information, as well as other kind of documentation found online through open sources, can identify specific mines. So, for example, we know Laos has a lot of legal mines, and they have a lot of documentation online. These companies have a website, so we can identify that location to that kind of mining, and we could add that on. But those are probably the biggest unknowns, as well as very early development mine sites. We can identify rare earth mines eventually. They all kind of follow the same method. But early on, if we're seeing a very early stage of construction of a potential mine site, it's hard to discern until we actually see those kind of clues and context through visual of the satellite imagery.
But much more work needs to be done.
Oh, yeah.
And our work is just getting started on this. We've put what we call unrestricted funding from the Chino Siniega Foundation to use to produce this work. The Chino Siniega Foundation is a small family foundation in Southern California that has been supporting our work for decades and is dedicated to protecting the Mekong, as well as to raising awareness on issues related to the war legacies from the U.S. involvement in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos during the conflict there. And we're grateful to CCF, for the Chino Siniega Foundation, for the support for this. But much more support needs to come. We want the support to go to people like Kun Pai, to Sang, to Dr. Wiria, and to journalism to do investigation on these efforts, as well as to others who are acting. We didn't uncover this. This was uncovered by the folks that joined us during our panel tonight, to Kun Pai, Sang, Wiria, and others. And again, the effort, even though it's exhausting for people who are affected by polluted water around them every day, we're only in the 8th month of this problem, and it's likely going to be years until it ends. So let's keep our energy up. Let's keep rested, those of you who are working on this as well, to the extent that you can, and don't stop until the rivers are healthy again. We're going to conclude this webinar. I want to thank those calling in from Thailand, Sang, Dr. Wiria, Kun Pai. It's late there, and you've got another day of hard work tomorrow, I'm sure, in front of you. So thank you for joining us. I also want to thank our friends at Reuters, Napat and Dev, who we worked with over the last month to produce their investigative reports on this, and more will be coming out on that soon. And finally, the Stimson Center comms team, communications team, has just been excellent in helping us get these products ready for publication. Thank you to the entire communications team for your efforts. If you have more questions and you're a journalist and want to have them answered, please join our press conference in just over 10 hours from now. That's 9 p.m. on November 24th, Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Bangkok time on November 25th. The link to RSVP is in the chat. You can email me for that link as well. I'm at beyler@stimson.org. This webinar is recorded. We're on the record, and we look forward to further effort on this. Please send us your reactions. Please send us your suggestions on how we can improve and augment our work. Thank you, everyone.